Hello and welcome to IndieWhat from SkipCinematic. This is Keenan presenting what you need to know about games in the indie genre. This time we'll be delving into the game Zeno Clash 2 from Ace Team and produced by Atlas. Zeno Clash 2 was released May 2013 and is available for PC via Steam for $14.99 as well as Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network for the same price. It's thrown into the action genre, but to be fair, I think it deserves an adventure title as well. This game is adventure-esque simply in the fact of how weird all the visuals are. So if there was a weird or disturbing genre, this would probably be a good flagship. For those who didn't play the first one or have never heard of Zeno Clash, it is played strictly from the first person with a heavy emphasis on being a hand-to-hand brawler. There are few actual guns or weapons and they all eventually break or run out of ammo, leaving you only with your fists once again. This sequel did a fair job at improving the combat from the first game with some minor improvements. However, overall it was very similar. Zeno Clash 2 presented a couple new combos and movement-based attacks, but the core attacks, the bread and butter, remains the same. But Zeno Clash 2 does introduce character progression in the form of skill totems that can be found throughout the world. These give you points to put into one of the 4 stats to improve your character. The biggest feature of Zeno Clash 2 and its claim to uniqueness is the world you play in, Xenozoic. Most of the inhabitants of Xenozoic are humanoid but with very bizarre features and typically some human-animal hybrid. Also, although the world is much more vast than the first incarnation, you fight many of the same residents over and over again. Though there are a few more types of enemies in Zeno Clash 2, most operate the same and are beat in the same fashion as all others. In truth, I felt that combat was slightly more satisfying in the first game. Zeno Clash 2 gives you some interesting utilities, but overall convoluted with what the game's direction was. With that, the other half of the world, the environment, to me is what is most fascinating. Again, some of it is hodgepodge together with the different zones just being different spurts of ideas, but I really enjoyed looking at it. I think it's easiest to compare traveling through each area like walking through an art exhibit. You move from a city fighting residents to a desert fighting Roman-like statues and onward to a pseudo-cyber swamp pounding on clay zombies. For people who watch any anime, there's even an area with crazy giant white hands clawing out of a sea of clouds. So like I said previously, the world is fascinating to look at, but honestly had no clear direction or consistent feel other than weird. This brings me to the story of Zeno Clash 2. In that aspect, it was a great improvement from its predecessor. Where the first installment presented you with only the bizarre universe, the second attempts to put some explanation to the world you are involved in. Although it isn't the most solid of explanations and the world of Xenozoic is still completely off the wall, it is intriguing. The attempt at explaining the overall atmosphere and what exactly Xenozoic is makes for a fun adventure. Some characters and quests are still out of place and appear to be more of just filler, but the intent was there and it was an intent that I enjoyed. However, the main thing I feel grabs a player's interest is the idea that the game is a first-person brawling game, unless you are similar to me and were entangled in the weirdness of the game's image. But on the first note, though it is a pretty original idea, there were a lot of flaws to be found in the combat system. First of all, the rhythm to perform certain combos was exhausting to get the timing down. This includes the fact that commands either had to be entered in a hurry or somewhat late. And like I mentioned earlier, although juggling, sprinting attacks, and new combos were added, any player can make it through the game with only knowing 1 or 2 full combos. In that sense, Zeno Clash 2 really lacked the dynamic of the fighting experience. Most enemies guard until they are within range to attack, and even then you can pound on them until you break through. It makes for overall easy gameplay. The only real effort comes in the boss fights where each have a unique strategy to defeating them. Though this small aspect is somewhat redeeming, there still isn't much challenge involved. The other new features in combat is being able to recruit characters to fight with you. They have to be summoned during special fight phases, but still their AI is severely lacking. More than anything, they provide a distraction when there are a large amount of enemies, but their usefulness doesn't grow past that. Overall, I found Zeno Clash 2 to be an enjoyable experience, though mainly this is due to the visuals and the originality. The environments and the general story are the major positives for this game. Witnessing the world that Ace Team produced was what compelled me to complete the game and discover the whole story. However, the combat system really required some more detail and finesse in development. Though the world was expanded on, there weren't many improvements made to the fighting. With that, the AI for the enemies and allies alike was subpar as well. And Zeno Clash 2 just didn't really present much of a challenge and lacked an immersive feel in its gameplay. This leads me to give Zeno Clash 2 a rating of 3.5 out of 5. It's a fun game and a decent one at that. It truly does present some very unique visuals and a story that I haven't seen anywhere else. But without the extra effort into the actual mechanics that keeps a player involved is where the game suffers. Though I definitely would recommend this title to anyone who has an interest in indie games. Thank you for watching this episode of IndieWhat. Be on the lookout for the next one where I will review the game Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. This has been Keenan with another SkipCinematic video game review. It's been real, and I'm out.